Welcome, everybody, to Too Legit to Crit, a tabletop role-playing podcast hosted by a few individuals who, unlike your average Wizards of the Coast executive, we're proud of what our contributions to society are.
Oh, ouch, she's coming savage today.
It's been a while since I gave them shit, so I figure, why not?
Right?
You know, I'll stop when that cease and desist letter arrives. I will wear that with like a badge of honor. But my name is John Santana.
I'm Atlas.
And with us we have RP from Songs and Saga fame joining us. Dude, thank you ever so much for coming on the show. It is an honor to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out. I was like, I'm super excited to be here.
Nah, I mean, I've kind of, I think since my earliest days on Threads, I think I started following you, one of the first people I started following. And I think back then, I think you might have been getting Stoneburner ready. And a lot of what you were doing is, here's this YouTube tutorial about using Affinity to create a layout and this, that, and the other. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And I started following. And lo and behold, now you're another system in. And man, I got to say, I love your work.
That's super kind. It was stressful to finish like such a big campaign as like Stoneburner and like publish something new, and like especially like coming out with a new system and like, okay, are people gonna like this as much as my previous thing? Like, it's always like imposter syndrome kicks in so much after like something that you've made like actually connected with people, and then you're like, am I going to be able to do that again, or was that like a one-hit wonder? Like, is it a Wonderwall kind of situation or not? Like,
I love that. The answer is yes, by the way. They do love it as much, if not more so. It's amazing. But no, I feel that. Every time I do something slightly good, I'm like, that was a fluke. That was an accident. That was sheer beginner's luck. 10 years later, it's beginner's luck, you know?
Yeah, I think that it seems to be quite a prevalent sensation in the community. The imposter syndrome. I know I suffer with it inside and outside of this realm. But I've seen so many people suffering with it, and it's just like someone like yourself having imposter syndrome to me is wild, because I just kind of want to grab you and just kind of go, no, you deserve it. You deserve to be where you are, and even higher. You deserve even more than where you've got.
But it's tricky because what we do is also very connected with art. And art is subjective, right? It's like we often see that in games where like the designer is going to write like, once that game has left like the printer, this game is yours and you can do whatever you want with it. But if it's yours, then you can also interpret it the way you want, which means you could interpret it in a way that the designer didn't intend, and then you could like that, you could not like that. It's very like you could. It's. There's so many vibe checks. It's just like, is a game going to connect with people? It's just like a matter of vibes often, and like that's not like it's hard to get that vibe. I
think my favorite, speaking of vibes and people getting it or not, my favorite comment I saw on Threads was like, I was hyping it up. I saw you hyping it up. Everyone's talking about Songs and Sagas. They're excited. There's talking. I saw a comment flash across my Threads page of like, it's in space. How did I miss it was in space? I was like. But to be fair, like, it's not like in your face about it. Like, it's you know, like you said, vibe check. Some people are like, yes, wait, it's in space. Like,
yeah, it's not mentioned, and like we're working like Songs and Sagas is like it's a very condensed game, right? It's just like a little pamphlet that you can print at home, and there's like a separate sheet for the map, right? It's like two pieces of paper basically, and like we didn't have a lot of space to write everything we wanted to, right?
Sure.
So a lot of things are hinted at, either in rolling tables or in this very short setting paragraph. We're working on an expanded edition, even more so that now that like we've seen that people like the condensed version. So we're like, okay, like let's kick the project off the ground and like invest in more art and like more text and more like a bigger book, right? And in that bigger book will be a bit more clear as to like what the setting is. But yeah, it is in space, but also not really.
Yeah, it's beautiful, the whole thing. So like, tell us about it. Like, anyone who's watching the show doesn't know it. Like, give us Sell us your dream baby right there.
Yeah. Love that expression. I'm gonna steal it. Right. So the way that I describe it is that Songs and Sagas is a OSR reimagined TTRPG. And what I mean by OSR reimagined is that like it has some roots into the OSR. Like you can like OSR or NSR movement. So basically like the kind of like mentality that when people were playing D&D in the 70s kind of like style of gameplay, right? And then D&D evolved into something else. But then that mentality of the way that people used to play at the time came back with like old school essential, and then it kind of forked into the new school revolution movement, where you've got like your Marka, like Into the Odd, you've got Cairn, you've got Knave, you've got like all of those like Mouse Ritter, fantastic NSR games. Like Songs and Sagas is a bit like that, but it takes more risks than the traditional OSR and NSR games, as in like I'm a big fan of story games, like stuff like actually like the first TTRPG that I played, like many people, was D&D, and I had a horrible experience with it, as in like my character was killed in the yeah.
John?
Sorry.
My character was killed in the first 5 minutes by like not an enemy, but like a fellow player wanted to my level 1 loot. So long story short, I didn't touch the hobby for like 13 years, and then I came back and started playing Fate, and from Fate I discovered Blades in the Dark, and from Blades in the Dark PBTA, and like learned all about like story games and collaborative storytelling, and I was like, that's my jam. I love that. So Songs and Sagas is this weird thing where we like, there's a reason why like NSR and OSR games are popular. They're fun. They're really well built. So we took that framework and we added a bunch of like things related to story games, so collaborative storytelling and all of that, like a narrative control and a balance between like who has narrative control between the GM and the players. And we also added something a bit funky that I personally haven't seen in an OSR game. It's the usage of a deck of cards for the core resolution mechanic of the game. So one of the things that we do is that like I have the game printed here. I have like the X map that you have like when you start playing the game, and all those X's are regions and islands that you explore in the game, and those regions have a risk rating, and that risk rating determines the number of cards that you pull when you make like a check or a test or a save, whatever you want to call it. We call it a trial roll. When you reveal those cards, it's possible that like some of those cards are going to be black, others are going to be red. If those are black cards, the risk of your test is going to be increased. So you thought you needed to beat a certain number, and whoops, you've revealed 2 black cards, and actually that number has increased by a lot. So that's kind of like the gist of the game. But in terms of like setting or like what the game looks like, it is like a super short pamphlet. Like it's a thing that you can easily print at home. You've got like guidelines, the setting, maybe the camera. Okay, camera's going to pick it up at some point. The camera's trying to find my face.
Which I love, by the way. It gave me a minor heart attack earlier. You moved, and it moved. Like, his camera's
the
following.
Camera's moving, yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, we're good.
I'm going to try to, like, put it in, like, okay. Now, I think it should stop moving. But, yeah. So, we've got, like, the character sheet over there. And then we've got all the rules inside. And it won't focus. And
I love that, though.
And on the back cover, there's the character creation process, and then there's that extra sheet that's basically like an X map and a bunch of rolling tables that you can use to like play. And yeah, so like that's what the game looks like. And in terms of like setting, the gist of it is, if I want to be very, very blunt so that like people like get it and not like try to hint at what the setting actually is, you're a bunch of Viking type people who you've left your world because the end was coming. Don't know why. Maybe we'll say it in an expanded version, but for now, we don't tell you why you left your world, but it was coming to an end. You left your world, and your ancestors went through portals, doors amidst the sea, and through those doors, they were transported somewhere else, somewhere weird.
I love that.
In my head, I see it as another planet. I see it as like, this is like Vikings being dropped on the planet of Scavenger's Reign. That's the pitch. That's like, if I could like condense it, that's kind of like it.
I love it. That is fantastic.
You mentioned the mechanics to Songs and Sagas, and one thing that kind of struck me early on not like even before Songs and Sagas, when you were designing Stoneburner, which is based on Breathless, the mechanics for Breathless, I immediately fell in love with. I think it was such a simple idea, but that carried so much weight for Breathless, which is a zombie apocalypse game. So, and I was explaining it to Atlas quite excitedly earlier, but each of your skills, your attributes, is all defined by a size of the dice. The better you are, the bigger the dice. Every time you roll that dice per skill, per whatever, that dice size decreases. Then you can spend what a rest to recover your dice sizes, but the GM gets to interject with a complication. That, for me, was such a perfect marriage of mechanic and setting. Because if you've ever watched a zombie movie, that's what it is. Every time they rest, shit gets worse.
Yeah.
And then they have to fend that off, and then they get to a moment where it's like, okay, we're here now, we're safe, and all of a sudden, shit'll happen again. And I think that was just absolute brilliance. And lo and behold, you've gone and fucking done it again with Songs and Sagas. Because I was watching your guide this just shortly before the show, and more than once I had to pause and went, wait a minute, how have they done this? And rewind it and listen to it, and it is absolutely phenomenal. Do you want to kind of go into that a bit more? Because I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, most definitely. Gotta read the rules because like that's designers. That's why we write them, is because we always forget about them.
I love that. Can we make that a shirt? Like that's
yeah, we should.
We make the rules because we forget them.
Yeah, and that's actually not even from me. Like John Harper said that like to me when I was on the stream talking about Breathless. Like I was interviewed about Breathless at some point, and John Harper was in the stream, and he was like, "That's why we write them down. That's because we always forget." I was like, "I'm gonna steal that for sure."
Yeah, that's so accurate.
But yeah, like the core, because like I think a game kind of like needs a core gameplay loop, and in Breathless, it's like this constant like tension and release cycle. A bit like if you're listening to music, and music is never always like a song is never always like all the way to the top. Is like there are calm moments and there are like strong moments, and it's this balance that makes a good song. And for Breathless, it's a bit like that. There are moments of high tension and then there's a rest, and moments of high tension and then there's a rest. But the mechanics force that into the gameplay. And that's the gameplay loop, right? You do risky stuff and then you rest. You do risky stuff and then you rest, and the game basically puts the risky stuff right back into your face every time you try to rest. So it creates this shift, this balance, this ping pong. And for Songs and Sagas, we wanted to create something that was very focused on exploration. It's the first game that like I designed that included an X map, even though like I've been eyeing like X map mechanics for a while. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to touch and like try to make something and innovate on it, because like I have a hard time just taking something and building upon it and without like going back to the drawing board and like tell myself, how can I make it better or different or interesting? Sometimes I fail. There are some of my games out there that like just didn't work, and that's fine. But they're done and they're published, and I've learned from that, and then I like up to the next. But
it's a great mentality, by the way. Such a healthy mentality. Just finish and move on and learn from it. That's great.
Yeah, but it's hard. It's so hard. Like when you see one of your baby fail, you're like, so many hours.
Yeah.
I think my parents have the same sort of philosophy when it came to me.
It's okay. Mine too, probably.
Wow. But yeah, like the TLDR, well, not TLDR. We're here to talk about it, so I'm gonna not the TLDR version.
Yeah, we want everything.
Yeah.
So when you start the game, you've got that X map, right? So you take a D20 and you drop it on. You like take in your hand and you just like leave it, and it drops on the table somewhere on that X map, and this is where you start the game. This is on one of those like X's. And then using a bunch of tables and procedures, you're going to define what that X look like. Like, are those islands? Is this a mountain? Like, what are the point of interest? Like, and like using themes and actions and all of that, you define like where you are and what is interesting about that particular location. And then you reveal a card, right? So I'm going to reveal a card from my deck in front of me just for like fun. And I've revealed like it's gold, but it should be red. It's like a heart, right? So it's a red card. And according to the game mechanics, it says that like when I reveal a red card, like a art, the risk rating of the region is 1, which means that every time I'm going to make a test or a trial roll, I will reveal 1 card when making my test. So when you make trial rolls, you try to perform a risky action that has a chance of failing. So you roll a d20 plus a certain modifier, and you need to beat like a number set by the GM, right? So by default, that should be a 12. So d20 plus number, try to beat a 12. Go over that 12, right? The GM could increase that, maybe a 14, or lower it, maybe a 9. But like, that's like simple stuff. We've seen it in so many other games before, right? No rocket science there.
Yeah.
But because I've like the region I'm currently in as a risk rating of 1, when I like every time I make a trial roll, every time I try to attack, every time I try to defend, every time I try to do something risky, I will reveal a card. So if I reveal another one, I've just revealed a black card. And that means that the risk rating, whatever the GM has set, is now increased. So instead of like being a 12, it is now a 14.
Okay. All right. That's
so
sweet.
It creates this agent of chaos where the players don't like, yes, they need to explore, but when they enter a region that has a risk rating of 3, it means that you'll reveal 3 cards every time you do something risky. And right now, I have two black cards, which means that like instead of a 14, I need to beat a 16. So that gets tricky. So the game, by doing that, kind of forces you to think about what is risky in the region, and you kind of ask yourself, do I want to stay there, or do I want to get the hell out as soon as possible? And if I stay here, how can I get that number down? How can I stabilize the region? How can I make it more friendly? Because like, as I said in the setting, your ancestors have left their own world, and they're in this place that's very treacherous and dangerous.
Kind of have to make it work at this point, yeah.
Yeah, you have to make it work. You have to settle, right? So,
oh my gosh, yeah. I want to play this so bad. Like, I am all about. It's so funny because like I'm a zombie fan. I'm an adrenaline junkie. Like I love story games, but I also love the fact that like games that are games where there's risk involved. So like I said, I've been hyping Songs and Sagas. Granted, 9 times out of 10 I get the name wrong, but that's because I mouth English is hard. English is so hard. But like,
try to learn French. Like that's
I did. One day I went on to Duolingo, and they had me try to figure out what meant in 4 different squares. They all said and I'm like, no. I'm out. I tried. I failed.
but I see what you mean though about like games being games. It's fun. Like that's like I love it when a game is like it prompts you to interact with the mechanics. When a game is like, oh yeah, don't use the mechanics, I'm like, but it's fun to roll dice. It's fun to take those things and like throw them.
There. Yeah.
One thing.
This is a great blend of that. That's my point. Is like this is a beautiful blend of this is very clearly a game, and like yes, I'm in it, but also the storytelling, like the story concept is beautiful. I'm just like like it's great. I love it.
One thing I did like is when you talk about doing your trials. A lot of systems, and like just to kind of go back to the D20, like the Pathfinder and the D&Ds of the world, it's very much a success or fail. Granted, some of them have degrees of success, degrees of failures. What Songs and Sagas does is a success or a setback, and the way they differentiate is on a success, the player takes control. On a setback, the GM takes control. And I think that was a really sort of unique way of looking at the way trials are handled. And yeah, just one of the countless other things that I've seen in the system that I've just, I'm liking it so much already.
And it's fun because like, well, it's that's how I play. Like this game is how I play at my table. Like when one of my players succeeds, I'm like, you have narrative control over what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm gonna like veto or retcons a couple of things if they go out of the scope of what has been established into fiction. Yeah. But like, you did it. Like, what does it look like? Please describe it. And also, it encourages players to like add to the fiction a bit, like, and make the world their own, which I think is very important. That's also like one of the reasons why like I've talked about it. I've talked about it in the past on Threads that I don't like when players come with like 3 pages of backstory for their characters, because I'm like, first I'm not going to remember that, and the second one is like I think it's fun to build those things as a group. I understand why people do it. Yeah. It's just not my vibe.
I could not agree with you more.
We literally just talked about that last episode. We were like, the people that give you a book for backstory, and it's like, oh, honey, like.
Yeah, cool, and everybody plays differently. That's fine. If your table loves that, that's okay. Yeah. But I never prep for my game, so like I'm not gonna prep for your character. Like that's just too much. I have like. My job as a game designer, I'm a software engineer during the day. I have 2 kids, a wife, and a house. So, like, I have a lot of things to plan. I'm not going to plan, like, your character's story.
No. No. Now, I do have, it's a little bit more of a creative question, not so much as a system question. You had earlier mentioned, like, the anxiety a little bit of releasing the Stoneburner and it being successful, and then releasing Songs and Sagas not too shortly after. Like, to be honest, it has not been that long. How closely in the creative process were those together? Like, did you finish, Stoneburner, and then suddenly you had this idea for Songs and Sagas, or had Songs and Sagas been kind of lurking in the background? You've been working on it, and like, how was the timing and creative process between those 2 projects?
Yeah, that's a good one. So Stoneburner, if Stoneburner started basically as a tweet. I posted like a thing to a friend. He's called Andrew Boyd of Pandian Games. You should invite him to your show. He's an amazing TTRPG designer.
Absolutely.
But,
right down, John.
I'm making notes. Andrew, if you're watching,
yeah,
RP says you can come on. That's fine.
Yeah, you should come up. But yeah, I sent him a tweet, not a tweet, but a message. And I was like, okay, what do you think about like all the players have inherited this cursed minds? Like all the players are dwarves, and they have like a parent, and that parent like it's maybe like your grandfather's uncle or something that has died, and you're the only person who can inherit the minds. Oh, and also you're in space. What do you think? He's like, this is amazing. So I made like a quick layout and posted it on Twitter, and people were like, this is great. And then like 3 months later, 80% of the game was done, and that was like. I think the first tweet was in December, not of that year, but the 2022, I guess, December 2022. The Kickstarter was in April, so like 4 months later, 4 or 5 months later, and like Songs and Sagas was not there yet. It wasn't in my head. So like I was mostly focused on Stoneburner throughout 2023 because I really there's so many Kickstarters that fell. It was my first one, and there were so many variables that I needed to play with, like needed to print the thing and then send it to a distributor and then like send all those copies. We sent like over 1,000 copies around the world, and like that was the first time I was doing that. So there were so many risks and variables, and I was like, I need this to work. It cannot be late. I was
So didn't you also have someone making dice for Stoneburner?
Oh yeah. That wasn't. It was not planned.
I love that. Oh yeah.
Like we didn't know we would make dice because like we didn't know that the campaign would blow up. We didn't know that like it would blow up in popularity. We're like, okay, we think with $4,000 we can make 100 copies and distribute them, and it's gonna be that. And then it was like, oh yeah, $45,000 later. Like we're there, right? So as it blew up, we were looking for ways to give stuff to the community, right? So we invited guest writers. We invited like 5 like great TTRPG designers to write stuff for the game. And then we were like, okay, what else can we do? Could be cool to do some dice, right? It could be fun. So I made like a post on Twitter at the time, and then Rich of Ashland Games pinged a dice maker from the UK she's called Jody of Jody's Dice Farm.
Yeah.
And she's
We know Jody.
fantastic. She's amazing. She's just great, and she was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make some dice. Like I can work with you, and we partnered, and we made like a limited like set of dice. I think I have a couple here that I actually bought for my editor. I still need to meet him at some point in the near future, but no.
They are really pretty.
Yeah, it's like, well, this is like a chunker one. Like this was a test, but it's like a big
Oh, yes.
That's fucking gorgeous.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like made of jesmonite, so it's like this faux stone kind of material. And I love that. Like I recently played a game of Avatar Legends, and like with the Kickstarter they shipped like those very pretty obsidian dice or something, and like one of my players like broke one of them in our last game. And was like, this would never have happened with Jody's dice, because like before she was like, hey, we could work together. She was like, here's a video of me throwing my dice on the wall, like to show how like sturdy those are.
So
Okay,
what you could do is you could put Jody's dice in a sock and beat that player who broke your dice.
Seriously, but like that's great marketing. First of all, like yeah, her dice wouldn't have done that, but like that's amazing. That's like the fact she just threw a video of like, hey, chunk.
Just a quick shout out to everyone in the chat. Thanks ever so much for joining. But one comment has just grabbed me, and it's Eric Lazur has said, "My dice." Is that your editor?
Yeah, that's my editor, and like they're right there, and the box is still sealed. I was like, I'm gonna show them. Oh no, it's sealed. I'm gonna leave them there. Like it's your dice.
That's fantastic.
But yeah, Eric was the editor for Stoneburner, and then like he's been editing everything I've written ever since. He's another amazing human being.
Well, shout out to Eric. Thank you for editing, because this is amazing stuff.
Yeah,
right?
we are. I'm blown away by some of this.
Yeah.
So I massively interrupted you with the dice thing. So we were talking about that, like the journey,
the timeline,
the Stoneburner to dice. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, like Stoneburner, I was like really trying to finish it up, and then by like around fall, I think the game was finished and was sent to the printer. So now it's just a matter of like the printer doing their job, shipping it to the distributor, and then the distributor shipping every copies to like the backers. So it's a bit out of my hands at that point. So I was like, well, I guess I can start designing new things again. So I was actually talking with Eric, and the artist we partner with at Fire Pages. He's called Galen Peugeot. He's another like amazing person. Like Eric, Galen, and I, we're now a trio. Like we're a dream team, if you ask me.
I love that. That's great.
I started talking with both of them, and I was like, okay, I have an idea for a system. I still don't know what the setting's going to be. This is like the gist of the base mechanics. It's still not there yet. It was still like a Google Doc or a Notion document at some point. I was like, it's not clicking. I'm almost there. I know I want to introduce cards and OSR together and merge them together. I don't know how it's going to work, but I have like this idea that just won't resolve itself. And eventually it clicked, and I wanted to make like this game about we still want to do it at some point, but we wanted to make like this game where you were like bugs, but like samurai kind of bugs, like trying to like discover the world. It was like a weird thing, but like I'm not going to talk too much about it, but like Songs and Sagas was supposed to be that thing, and then that thing was like, oh my god, it's going to take so much time because we have to explain so many things about this world.
Yeah, just your exoskeleton in general.
Yeah.
Like what?
So I was like, okay, so that's not going to work, and I was playing a video game called Kingdom Two Crowns with my wife, which is like this very cool little co-op game where you're like the leader of a kingdom, and you start with nothing and you grow your kingdom. And they have this Norse lands expansion, and I was listening to the music of that game. I was playing that game. I was like, I can make a Viking game, and then it became more than that, obviously. But yeah, so that's like what has happened. Like Stoneburner was finished and out of my hands, and it was in the hands of my distributor. I started playing around with like this bug game, and then it evolved into Songs and Sagas, and then we released like the playtesting version in like I think January of this year. It has been pretty much done for like the past 2 months. I've just been busy with other things. I was like, okay, like it's time to release it. I don't feel comfortable releasing it. Stoneburner was such a success. I don't think I can reproduce that again. But like, here goes. Like, I hope you like it. This thing is like $3. Like, if you like it, like, I have no words. Let's just like take it. I need it out of my hands. It needs to be done and over. I need to pass to something else or see if this thing works. And it worked.
It
really works.
It certainly has worked.
Yeah.
So going back to Stoneburner for a second, because obviously you were saying that Stoneburner like exploded more than you expected. Did you have a similar result with Breathless, or did Stoneburner like bring Breathless up? Because they're based on the same system, if I'm not mistaken.
Breathless was already, I'd say it was already up before Breathless. It wasn't at the same scale in terms of both like number of players or hype or like funds raised or anything. But it has been kind of like its own phenomenon, as in like I was participating at a local game jam we have like this thing called the Draconis Festival, which is the biggest TTRPG festival in the province.
Love the name, by the way.
That's so cool. Festival. Okay.
I was participating at the game jam for that festival, and then it was like a con, right? And I had made Breathless. I thought it was cool, and when I released it, it was a judge. There was a panel of judges who were judging all of our games, and Breathless didn't even make the top 3. It got like one of the judges' heart, like they had like heart stamps. I was like, oh, that game is cool, but like it didn't make it even in the top 3, and I was so sad. Because I invested a lot of time and passion to that game. I was like, this is like, I don't understand why it didn't work. And again, it was one of those times where like, well, like maybe somebody out there is gonna like it. So I published it. I took all the rules and made them open licensed as well. I was like, well, if you want to hack it, like I think it's a cool little engine. And again, it started blowing up, and then John Harper from Blades in the Dark quote tweeted my tweet. It was like, this is amazing, and then he bought the game, and then he bought like another one of my Breathless game, and that has helped so much make Breathless like known to more people. And then we made the jam, and like there are more than, I need to check how many Breathless games there are right now, but like I think
a
it's
few.
over. There's a few.
I mean, I purchased a bundle not long ago, and it was the Trans Rights bundle, the HIO Trans Rights bundle, 500 games. There are so many games in there that are based on Breathless. It's phenomenal to see.
Yeah, there's 139 that I know of.
That's insane. But again, it's because the mechanics are so crisp. They work so well. They're so simple, but you can do so much with them. It's fantastic. And
but what you were saying about,
I'm sorry, but like that's gotta be this. I'm super. But like, how do you feel? Like you couldn't have. You're like, oh, I didn't expect it to blow up. It has blown up. Like people are loving it. People are talking. Like that's gotta be trippy for you, right? Like, are you just kind of sitting in like, oh wow, this is nice, or do you have those moments where you're just going, is this real? Like, is this actually happening? How does that
It's a
feel
weird
for you?
combination of both. Yeah. It's a weird combination of like when I'm online, when I look at my phone and look at my notifications, I'm like, this is unreal. This isn't happening. And then I go back to my real life and talk with some of my friends who are like, oh yeah, you designed some TTRPGs and whatnot, and like they have no idea of the scale of those things are happening. Like the friend that broke my obsidian die, when I made like a post, I was like, you're like, me complaining about you breaking my die has been seen by 800,000 people. Like but yeah, like there are some moments that
you
are
hated
that are
on the internet, sir. You owe me new dice.
But there are some moments that are unreal, and other where I'm just like, there are basically there's a line between like when I talk with my friends and when I'm interacting online, and it's like this, it's a weird thing. But yeah, it's definitely unreal. Every time I release something and it works with people, it's just humbling. It's just like, I look at this and it's the most wonderful feeling in the world. And like, it's not even about like people buying the game or anything, but like what really is impressive is when someone reaches out and sends me a DM and they just like, I played your game either solo or as a group, and I had a great time. And I'm like, this is it. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Like I'm beyond happy. It could be one person, it could be 100, but if one person has played the game and had fun, that made it all worth it.
That's amazing. That's spot on.
Yeah, and like kind of like focusing a bit more on Songs and Sagas now, because I watched your how-to guide essentially, where you kind of go through it.
Everyone should go watch, by the way, when you get a chance. Right after this, go watch it.
In fact, come back to this later. Just go watch it now.
It'll be uploaded later.
It is, No, but it like just every now and again you'd say something, and I just think that is absolute genius. Because when you were talking about, if I'm not mistaken, when you are in a place with a higher risk, you draw 3 cards. Every time a player succeeds, they manage to keep a card from the ones that you've drawn, and it has to be a red card if available.
Available. Yeah.
And I didn't think about it until you mentioned it. The players are then the players then hold these cards in their hand, which they can play for certain advantages. But if they hold on to them, that means there are less red cards in the deck, meaning that their chances of success and chances of good things happening decrease.
Yeah.
And I remember with Justin, our other co-host, who's currently got a lot of life things going on, so he's not currently with us. We were talking about doing a card-based system, and one of my problems of coming up with that was that specific thing, that the more cards you pull, the less there is to choose from. But you've managed to work that into the mechanics, and that, I just think it's absolutely brilliant.
It's like I've been trying to make that work for a long time, that feeling, because you will have that like that problem of like hoarding resources in any game that has a meta currency, right? If you have fate points in Fate, or if you have, like, I think they're called there's a thing in Savage World, I can't remember the name, but like if there's a meta currency, there's a higher potential that the players are going to keep it and not use it. And in some of my previous games, the way that I've been trying to like make the players burn that meta currency in any way they can is to reward it when they take risk, right? So I have another game called Charge, where you, like, every time you take risk, there's a chance you're gonna get that meta currency back. So you're gonna get some. It's not based on luck. It's just like, well, if you take risk, there's a chance you're gonna get it back. So may as well burn it, right? And it's the same thing for Songs and Sagas. You gain cards when you take risk, but I wanted to be a bit more aggressive, and especially playing with the card colors and everything. It's like, well, if you keep those cards, it is not going to play well. I really want you to burn them for 2 reasons. Like, burning cards is fun because you get those special abilities and you're able to change the fiction, you're able to get new items, you're able to turn failures into successes and like a bunch of cool stuff. So like burning cards is fun, but also burning cards reduces the difficulty of all future rolls because you're burning like red cards, and those red cards will come back into the deck. So like you said, like the more you hoard the cards, the more black the deck becomes.
I am that player. I'm that player. Like Savage Worlds. I love Savage Worlds. It's Benny's, I think. Is it?
Yeah, Benny's. Yeah.
I was waiting for Coddle to say something. He did.
Yes,
Benny's.
Coddle's,
Okay.
Coddle's
I was like, and like with Fabulous points, and like I am that person. It's so bad. I'll just hold on to it. I'm like, well, I might need it. Like,
Yeah.
or like, I don't know about it. But reading, like hearing the system and the cards, and like I said, that really plays on my like the risky adrenaline, like ooh, like that ooh, like, okay, let's play it. It's beautiful.
One of my pet peeves with Pathfinder 2nd Edition is I don't like the way that their meta currency, the hero point, is handled. Because you get a hero point at the start of every session, you lose it at the end. So what players end up doing, they end up hoarding them. And then in the last 20 minutes of the session, they go Nova and just burn all those hero points. So for the last 20 minutes of the session, the level of risk that the players face is massively reduced. And I just think it's a really poor way of implementing. So it's good to see a system where the meta currency is prompted to be fluid. It's prompted to be a moving thing. Fabula Ultima is a great example of that, where the more Fabula points you spend at the end of the session, the more XP you can get. You know, and I think it's fantastic, and the way you're doing it in Songs and Sagas is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's to try to, like, mechanics encouraging behaviors, right? Like I think mechanics can do two things, and they should do two things. Like, mechanics should make the theme, it should match the themes of your game, right? So if your game is not about combat, don't put combat mechanics. I was reading this game, and I'm not going to name it because it's a popular game, it's loved by many, but like, I was reading it and I loved it. I love the mechanics, I love the game, it's made by this amazing company. And then I was like, everywhere in the game it was like, do not fight the monsters, and then there were like 12 pages of combat rules. I was why are those there? I don't understand.
Yeah, that seems a bit counterproductive.
Well, it's there because they were going to forget about it. We discussed this. They wrote it down.
yeah, exactly. But like, my personal guess is that maybe they wanted to like make it more familiar for people who were like used to combat, like in D&D and stuff like that. But like, that game didn't need it. Those mechanics didn't reinforce the theme. So like, I think like, one of the cool thing is like making a game and then stripping it off until you only have mechanics that are good for the theme. And like, having a condensed format, like a single sheet of paper, is so good as a designer, because you're condensed in the amount of space and words, the number of words that you can write. But yeah, like, having mechanics that reinforce themes is super important. But like, if mechanics can encourage behaviors that you want to see at the table, that's even better.
Yeah.
In the chat, Connell has just posted a question. I think it's quite an interesting one. Yeah. It's, how do you choose whether to make an entire new system versus continuing to work with the one you've already made? Why not create a new setting instead of system rules?
Yeah, it's a good one, because like, it also, like, if you keep making new systems, you're also leaving your older child like alone, right? You're not taking care of them. You're like, okay, you're done, and then like, it's all about like making something new and hype. Like, it's all about hype all the time. So like, I think it's like, when you think about a setting, well, like, the way that I work is that if I think about a setting and I look at all the systems that I've made, if there's a match between like one of those systems, like for example, if I want to make something that is really like focused on adrenaline and exhaustion, and like people like always getting into risky situations, and like they will always have a hard time until they don't, and then the game puts them back into like an adrenaline situation, then I know I have that. I know I have the system that will work with this kind of setting, so I will use Breathless. But if I'm like, okay, I want to make a game about solo exploration, but like, I don't think Breathless is going to fit for that game. Maybe I could make something new, right? And then you experiment, and then you fail. You experiment, you fail again. Eventually you make something. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But yeah, like, it's trying to find that balance of like, if you keep making something new all the time and you're not investing time and energy in the systems that you've already built, then you're not helping them grow. And I think making Breathless grow, making Firelight's another one of my system grow is very important to me. But also, like, if those systems don't help the setting that I want to create, then I think I need something new.
I think that's a fantastic
insightful.
Answer.
Yeah.
That is really interesting, because you're right. I mean, you wouldn't be able to get Breathless to work for exploration, because it just quite simply doesn't fit.
I mean, you could. It'd be more of a nightmare, though, really.
Yeah, and like, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have made a solo exploration game based on Breathless, and it's called Nomadic, and it doesn't end well. The game has when the game ends, you die. It is a tragic exploration game. The game tells you from the get-go, you're like, every time you're out of resources, you have no more die to use, you're out of everything. You have two choices. Either you leave the game, or you reset everything and you go. It's like a thing inspired by No Man's Sky. It's like you go on another planet and you fast forward 6 months in the future, but like there is no succeed conditions. Like it's either you continue playing or you decide that you're done and your character dies, and that's it. That's the game. And I think like it works with Breathless, but it wouldn't work for like another kind of setting. I think.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
delightfully grim. I love it.
I love all of your themes. Like it's got like you've got the fantasy with the dwarves and like the Norse, the adventuring, but everything has this underlying vibe of like, I don't want to say mystic because that's really the wrong word, but it's just that kind of extra. There's something extra. It's not just a dwarf game. It's not just a space game. It's something, and it's a little bit extra. It's great. I love it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you get a concept and you turn it on its head.
Yes.
And
Do you do that on purpose, or does it just happen? Like when you're like, oh, I can make a Viking game. Like, was it I'm gonna make a Viking game, but I'm gonna do this to it, or was it like, did it all happen at the same time? How do you combine your themes?
Yeah, and I think combine is the right word, right? Because all my settings are boring at first. They're always boring. Like
I don't
they're
know.
not
Samurai Bugs isn't boring.
Samurai Bugs, we want to see Samurai Bugs happen.
I'm gonna send you some of the art that our illustrator Galen has made, because like it's like something else. And this one is going to be carried in Songs and Sagas because it was originally made for this system. But yeah, like I'm gonna share some things on Translator.
Oh yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing
that.
But yeah, all my settings and even all my systems I think are boring at first. Like I write a pitch, and then one of the things that I try to do is mix and match. Like if I'm making like a system, I'm gonna have the core of the system, and then I'm gonna find it uninteresting, like it's not gonna be satisfying. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a bunch of research. I'm gonna read many books and try to see if there are some mechanics from those games, because there are so many great games out there, and try to see like, is there something in there that inspires me? And if it's not the mechanic, maybe it's the thing that the mechanic is trying to accomplish, and then I'm gonna try to get inspiration from that and inject it back into the mechanics. And it's going to be the same thing for my settings. Originally, Songs and Sagas started as like, I'm going to make a Viking game. And then it's like, well, they're not Vikings, actually, because it's not even on Earth. It's somewhere else. And like, those aren't like Vikings because they're from all over the world and from all different cultures. So like, it's I'm using the term Viking because it's a term that like everybody knows, but like in the game, they're never called like that. They're just Northern warriors, right?
Love that.
But yeah, it started like that, and then I do some research and I read books and I watch TV shows and movies or play video games, and then there's another setting that inspires me. And for Songs and Sagas, I was watching a bunch of like Viking movies and Viking TV shows and like reading books and everything. And then I was also playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and I was also watching Scavenger's Reign, and those three things combined helped me create this setting. And not just that, but also like our illustrator Galen, like when I send him ideas for like the games that we want to make, he's often going to take those ideas and enhance them and create art for them and then build on the world without even me saying anything. And Stoneburner was the same thing. Like I never talked about like star dragons in the game, and then eventually he just drew one. He was like, hey, it's like, what do you think about this? I'm like, this is amazing. It goes like straight up like so yeah, like I think like every idea that I have starts as boring, and then I work on it and release it only when it is not.
That's fantastic.
I think that's phenomenal, and kind
that's
of
a great process.
Linking up to this, Couch has kind of asked, do you think the setting, mechanics, or the idea of a game comes first? Much like transferring to Songs and Sagas, do you build a system and flip the theme halfway through? So what part of that process comes first for you? Do you think the mechanic, or do you think the setting?
Chicken or the egg?
Yeah, I'd say whatever comes first. It's I don't think the order is important. I think it's like, if you've got a good idea, whether it's like the setting or whether it's the mechanics, if you've got an idea, build on top of it, use it. Do not let it like die on its own little corner. So like for Stoneburner, I didn't know it would be a Breathless game. I didn't know it would be a game. It started as a setting. It started as me saying dwarves in space with demons on an asteroid. Like you were near the mine, and like all this blurb of text in my head is like, is that something? Yes. Okay, let's find like mechanics that will work with it. For Songs and Sagas, it started as this. It started mechanically. It started with mechanics. I tried to fit it to a theme, to a game, to a setting, and it didn't work because the setting was too large. So we found another setting for it. So for me, it depends. And like I would say, if you're designing something, take whatever comes first. If you've got an idea, build on top of it. Don't let it like fly away.
That's good advice.
I just want to take a couple of minutes here just to give a shout out to our partners. I know a lot of people are going to want me to get right back to talking to you, but unfortunately,
Talk faster.
Yeah, okay, let's just go ahead and do it. Okay, so first of all, I'd like everyone to check out Deals of Opportunity. It's an automatic, simple, and free way to save on tabletop role-playing games that you want. Just add your Drive-Thru RPG and Dungeon Masters Guild wish list and get notified anytime a title on your list goes on sale. Just set it up and save. And then we've got 13th Moon Games. It's a family-run indie company out of Wyoming, USA that created the tabletop role-playing game Covenant Crucible, a game of modern-day witchcraft. If you can imagine the John Wick movies and the last Witch Hunter movie got together and had a really pretty baby, Covenant Crucible would be it. And a big shout-out to Stefan, who is in the chat, who is one of the creators of Covenant Crucible. And lastly, check out our merch store. We've got loads of crap on there. You may enjoy it. Now let's go back to RP.
Back to the important. No, I'm just kidding.
Back to the important stuff.
Everybody's important. I'm just like, how much time do we have? How many questions can I ask? It's like, John, you hush. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. But on that note, actually, so, you're artist. I do a lot of RP art. Not like URP, but like TTRPG art.
Yeah.
Anyways. And I totally get that. The whole, like, you get this idea, you run with it. There's many times Connell has been like, hey, I'm designing this world. I'm like, cool. Giant crystal stone alien. And he's like, yeah. So, like, I get that. But one thing that I am obsessed with is the soundtrack. How did that happen? Were you like, oh, hey, I need to hire someone to make a soundtrack? Or did someone approach you? What? Please explain that.
Okay, I call it a soundtrack, but nobody composed any songs for Songs and Sagas.
Okay.
So like it is a custom playlist.
Yeah.
Okay.
that I made.
But you put it together, and nobody was like, "Oh, hey, this is the vibe." You were like this.
Yeah. So like every time I work on a game, what I do is like I always listen to like video game soundtracks, music, movie soundtrack, TV show soundtracks when I work or when I like work on TTRPGs or during like my day job. And I needed songs that fitted the game, so I made a soundtrack, but like I made a playlist for me. I always make those for me first, but then what I do is that when the game is done, I take like the cover of the game and put it and make the playlist public and put it on the website. It's like, hey, like I've listened to this 4 or 3 hour playlist when I designed this thing, so like I think it fits the game pretty well.
So you've done it with all your games.
Yeah.
Okay, because then I'm going to go listen to all of them. Because the reason I'm obsessed with it is I do the same thing for my character. Every single game I make a huge playlist soundtrack for my characers. So when I saw that you did that, I was like, oh, my people. Like, I understand that. I get that. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
So another question from the chat, again from David. It's like, do you find that as a system designer, you have more or less difficulty working within the systems that you didn't make?
Yeah, like I think, well, it's not that I have difficulty working within the system, it's that I have a difficulty staying in the system. So Songs and Sagas has a lot of like its origin, like many of its roots are in Mouse Ritter and Morkborg. So I was playing Pirate Borg with my friends. We played 2 sessions of Pirate Borg, technically. We played a bunch more using a different system that is now Songs and Sagas, still in the Pirate Borg world. So this is like, I have a hard time not making a game my own. So like right now I'm playing Avatar Legends with my friends, and I'm like, this is a cool game. I'm gonna make something out of it. And then like I already have a PDF all laid out, and my players are like, they're making jokes every time. It's like, oh, RP, do you have a new character sheet for me? It's like, yeah, I do. Like, it's like new week, new character sheet. So like, here you go. So I have a lot of trouble staying within the bounds of a system for more than like a couple of sessions before I want to try to do my own take on it.
That actually makes me feel a lot better, because I know that me and a lot of my friends and even Connell will be playing a system or GMing a system, and we'll be like, like,
how about
it's
we change
good,
this
it's
thing?
good. Yeah, but how about we, and then at that point it's like, is it even its own system anymore? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So speaking of kind of building on other systems, I kind of want to pick your brains a tiny bit regarding the game jam, regarding the Songs and Sagas game jam, specifically because you've worked with someone that we know pretty well, that we've referenced a few times on the show, and that's Andrea from Print and Play Games.
Yeah.
They've made a VTT for your system. Holy shit.
Yeah, that was my reaction too.
I don't think there are many systems out there, and we're even talking like the big ones. We're even talking like the big corporate, baby stealing Wizards of the Coast systems. They don't have their proprietary VTT.
Yeah.
But you've brought out thing. You opened up the game jam, and Andrea just went, "Yeah, all right, let's make a VTT for this."
Yeah, and
that's insane.
He's like super chill. Like, he came into our Discord and he's been like super active, and like he at some point he was like, you should make like a VTT for Songs and Sagas. And like, I'm a software engineer, I'm a front end engineer, like I know how to make cool web applications, and I made my own VTT, and it's open source, and it's been used by like 5,000 people every month for like the past 4 years. And like, wow. I know about this stuff. And when he pitched me the idea, I was like, I don't have the time. It's going to take me like so long. And then a couple of days later, he and one of his friends, they reached out. It was like, can we hop on a call? We have something to show you. And then they showed me this thing, and it's not just a VTT, it's fully illustrated, and it works. You can roll dice, you can draw, like, reveal cards and everything, all interactive, and then there's like music, and I'm like, sound effects. I'm like, okay, this is another level. I wasn't ready.
That's absolutely mad. I mean, we've dealt with.
I can't even imagine that. Like,
yeah, that must be like the highest sort of praise. For you to put something, like you said, when you create something, you put it out into the world, it's no longer yours. But for someone to kind of return that and kind of go, oh yeah, this is what I created for this purpose, to enable people to play this game. We've created that must be outstanding.
Yeah, and I think like one thing that's important, that I feel is important, is that like, I need to do everything in my power, like using the popularity of the game and the reach that I have to boost those people. Like when Andrea reached out, he was like, "Oh, do you want to put like this inside the itch page of Songs and Sagas?" And I was like, "No, you should put it on your itch page. You should put a price tag on it, and I will do everything I can to like." Refer, like, to talk about it to everyone that I know, to all the people that follow me on Threads, Twitter, my newsletter, and the Discord. Like, you should check out this VTT. It's like this amount of money. If you love Songs and Sagas, you should buy this thing, right? And it's the same thing for all the other games. So we're making a jam right now because the game is open license. So like, what that means in plain terms is that you can copy, paste, adapt, do whatever you want with the game, make a VTT out of it, as long as you put this little text blurb saying, like, this is, like, based on Songs and Sagas by this guy, here's a website, and, like, that's it. And yeah, like, I think, like, the jam is, like, a great opportunity for people to have, like, a time constraint and a theme or, like, a system constraint to create something, because having boundaries and limits is, like, super helpful to, like, finish a project. But then, like, my work is done with the game, but a new kind of work starts, and it's about boosting every single creation that goes into this jam.
Yeah, I mean, Andrea reached out to me as well, because once I saw the VTT thing, I jumped on that, and so he reached out, and apparently he's working again using the game jam that you've created. He's creating he's calling it Sword Wastelands of Iraq, and that is another system that is going to be based on Songs and Sagas. He did send me a preview copy, so I'm still kind of going through that. But yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. Talk to us a bit more about the game jam, about how like this community that is kind of building from
Yeah.
songs and sagas.
So we started the game jam a couple like 2 weeks when the game was released. So basically, I think 2 weeks ago or something. And the goal is to either make something compatible with songs and sagas. So whether it is like a sheet with rolling tables, an adventure, a pre-filled X map, anything, right? Or to make a game that uses the mechanics, the systems that power songs and sagas, games that we call carried in songs and sagas. So you have 2 months to do one of those things, finish it, and publish it. And that's it. There are no other rules. There are currently 47, I think, people who have joined the jam. So, right now, it's all about recruitment, trying to get as many people to join the jam as possible, because such a cool opportunity to create something and finish it and publish it, and having like also when you have like a whole community that's doing something together, like we have our Discord and all the people who are talking like constantly about what they're making. They're making devlogs and sharing screenshots of their layouts, asking for help. It's like, hey, what do you think about me changing this rule? What do you think about me writing this rule differently? Or like, hey, what do you think of this layout? And then having everyone come and like provide feedback and ask questions and stuff like that. It's such a cool feeling to see like a community to come together to help one another. And yeah, so we have 2 months to do that. I have my own idea of what I'm going to do for the jam. Like I recently watched a Fallout TV show, so I'm like, I'm going to do a little act, like a little like Songs and Sagas act of like in the Fallout universe, so like something like that. But yes, and also the amazing folks at El Refugio, they're like a publisher, a TTRPG publisher based in Spain. They reached out, and like, spoiler alert, I think I mentioned it in like my video on YouTube about Songs and Sagas, but like they're working on translating the game and the SRD and invite like the Spanish speaking community to join the jam. So as soon as like they are ready to join, I'm gonna extend the jam by like a couple of weeks or months, so that they have the time to join in and like create something for like the Spanish speaking community.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
because I remember seeing that on Threads, and I actually offered my services. I went, look, if they need like an extra translator, I'm always happy to help.
Our local Spaniard. But you know, it's funny you should say that though, because this whole concept of the game jam and the community coming together to work on something that is together, I think is kind of what sets Songs and Sagas and just your games in general apart. Is because you're in tune with the people trying your games. You're actually in touch with people. You talk to them on Threads. Like I'm seeing you all the time interacting. It's not just like, here's my stuff. I'm promoting the same thing that everybody else is. Everyone's making games. Everyone's playing games, talking about games. You're actually connecting people. You're connecting businesses, and like you said, you're turning it around. Like, no, no, no. You made that. You should like charge for that. Like you are not only taking something from this, but you're actually giving back in the community, and that says a lot about not only your character and integrity as a person, but the content and the things that you create. And that's amazing, because that you don't see that everywhere. I have to commend you on that, because that's amazing.
Yeah, my eyes are full at the moment. Really, just
Sincerely though, like I get so hyped about this because it is so much more than just here's my game, buy my game. Like you are invested and the people are invested. So thank you for all the hard work you've done in that, because that's it shows. It shows, and
Yeah.
it definitely
It shows, like Atlas was saying, it shows your strength of character, but it also shows your passion towards gaming, not just your game, but gaming in general. To kind of go, hey, this is what I created. Let's see what you can do with it.
yeah.
yeah.
And it's absolutely phenomenal to see, and I'm sure we're going to be paying a lot of attention as to what comes from this, because this is an absolute it's a phenom. It is something that we don't get to see, we don't get to witness as much as we would like to, and thank you ever so much for that.
That's very, very, very kind. I think there's so much toxicity in the world, and there's so much like condescending people out there, and like everyone is trying to learn, and like at some point in my career I wanted to like drop out of like software engineering and go and be a teacher and all of that, because like, and ended up not doing it and just like trying to interact more with like junior and intermediate engineers to try to like mentor them and everything. And like, this is basically what I want to do as well in like the TTRPG space. If I can help, I fought my way through a bunch of things. If I can help people learn about them without going through the same pains as I did, well, I'll do it.
That's amazing.
I mean, like I said,
amazing.
I think the first experience I had with you was you posting videos on YouTube whilst you were working and whilst you were kickstarting Stoneburner, kind of going, hey, this is how I do a layout. I actually bought Affinity because of you.
There we go. More marketing.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you came out and said, oh, check out Affinity, and it was on sale. It's like, fuck it, let's do it. So, but yeah, it was, just your videos of kind of going, okay, this is how we use Affinity Publisher. This is how we do a layout. This is how we kind of, and it was all useful information. It was all, this is how I'm going to make your life easier. And doing that whilst you're kickstarting a system was just
insane.
I never sleep.
Apparently, I was about to ask that. I'd be like, so like sleep to awake ratio. What are we talking about?
Yeah. Actually started sleeping a bit more now that the baby is going through she's sleeping through the night, so like that helps a lot.
Yes. Yes, win.
Yeah, good job.
That's fantastic.
So before we kind of bring this to a close, I just want to kind of pick your brains. What sort of advice would you be able to give somebody who is potentially looking to building their own system?
The first advice would be to read other I forgot which artist said that, but like something about like good artist creates, but great artists like steal or something. Like,
yeah, I remember that quote.
And it's the same thing in the TTRPG space. I think like we all build on top of the shoulders of people who came before us and built. Like, for example, like, you can take a look at the big names out there like Blades in the Dark. Like, that system didn't came out of nowhere. It was built on the shoulders of like PBTA, right? And PBTA was also built on the shoulders of like something else before, and like it's all about I think reading many games that you like and trying to find what you like in them and trying to like connect the dots and make something new out of it, looking at it, hating it, and trying to find ways to fix it would be, I think, my first tip is like trying to find great games that you love and like mix and match things that you love. And same thing for your settings, like mix and match things that you settings and stories that you love, and try to create something new and exciting out of it. And like, it will not work from the get-go. It doesn't work for me. I don't think it works for anybody. Like, somebody saying otherwise, I don't listen to them. I think like to be blunt, I think they're full of shit, but but
I love it.
But yeah, like I don't think it will work from the get-go, but like just start from stuff that you love, and like also don't care too much about balance, because once a game hits a table, balance is not really important.
It's a lie. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
once
like
it hits the table.
there is some concept of balance, but I would not call it balance as in like, oh, the numbers on the dice and everything is like, when a game enters a table, there's the chaos that comes in from the players and the GM that have interpreted your rules differently, and that will completely break your game. So like, try to just make an experience that you love based on stuff that you love, and that will get you like 80% there. The last 20% is learning Affinity, but that's another thing.
Well, that's good advice for designers. I love it. I do have a... Go ahead.
No, by all means, carry on.
No, I was going to say, I have a similar question, but slightly different. If someone is buying your game, Songs and Sagas, if they're picking it up because they're going to run it, or they're picking it up because they want to play it, what is one message you'd want to get across to them? Either GM or player, doesn't matter. Like, what do you want the people who are like really taking in your product to know? Like,
I think like one thing that is like that we didn't have enough space to write inside the game, but I still think it's very important. Like one of the core reasons why I recorded a 1 hour video about like the design intents behind the game is the fact that like there are two kinds of roles that you can make in the game. There are trial roles and fate roles. The trial roles is when you're trying to make something that is risky, and a fate role is when you're not. And that comes from the fact that like we talked about like games being games being stuff that you can play with. And this is a direct result of this me having this conversation with my players, because many games are like, oh, don't roll until it's risky. But my players love to roll all the frickin' time. They love rolling dice, and we're there to have fun. It's like a random Monday evening, and we're like eating snacks and drinking. It's like, okay, like I want to roll for some stuff because like I want to have fun. So that's why the fate roll mechanic is there, and it's because trial rolls make you interact with cards. They can give you cards in your end. Cards can increase the risk of your roll and all of that. And setback will give you XP. And like if you do that all the time, obviously you're gonna break the game a little bit, because you're gonna gain a bunch of like XP for not doing risky things.
Right.
So if you're doing something that doesn't carry risk, use fate rolls as much as you can, because rolling dice is fun. So my players are like, oh, like I want to try to like get a better deal at this tavern. Like let's imagine like a fantasy setting. It's like, oh, I want to get a better deal at this tavern. I don't want to spend too much like of my coins on like beer and whatnot. It's like, okay, let's leave it up to chance, right? Just roll with like willpower or anything. But we're not going to involve cards. You're not going to gain an XP. It's just a fate roll. Let's just have some fun. So I think like this clear distinction is very important, but is not like very outlined inside the game just because we lack the space. But I still think it's an important one, because I think at my table we use fate rolls more than trial rolls because of that, because my players are just obsessed with dice.
Clickety clackety happy. Yeah.
Just
throw the roll the dice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for that.
Thank you very much, and I think that's pretty much all we've got time for. I just want to like express my gratitude to you for coming on the show and for talking to us about these amazing systems and all this fantastic work you're doing. Would you be able to now just tell anybody watching where they can find you, where they can buy your products, what push.
Push.
You have the floor.
You have the floor. Sell. Sell, damn it.
So you can find me online pretty much. Like if you search for Fari RPGs, you're gonna find my itch page on Google. You can buy all the games in digital versions over there. FariRPGs.com. We have prints available there. Prints for Stoneburner. We're getting low on stock, so if you want to buy a copy, now is the time, because like it will take some time before we do another reprint. I'm about to do one, but like if you want to get a copy, now's the time. We also have prints for other games that we made, like Hopes and Dreams and Firelight and all of that. Apart from that, I'm on social media, mostly on Threads. I try not to talk too much on Twitter because it's a horrible space.
It's a cesspit,
yeah, it's horrible. But yeah, I'm RP DESHAIES. I'll drop it in the chat, but like you can search for that handle pretty much anywhere. You're gonna find me. I have like a special handle for Fari RPGs, but I don't interact with it as much. I'm a very open book, and I try to be myself, and being behind the wall of the company logo is just not me. So it's just like, I'm RP. I'm the person that does games for this logo, but like I'm just me. Yeah. I'm just having fun. So
love it. That's great.
So yeah, and also like I really recommend you give a follow to. I'm gonna drop their links in the chat as well. But like Eric is the editor for most of our games now, and he's also gonna do writing for Songs and Sagas. He's already started working on like islands and everything that we want to make for the expanded edition of the game. And he's just a joy to work with. So if you're like, if you add your idea for your system in your game, and now you're done with Affinity and you want to give like that to an editor, he's the guy to hire. And Galen Peugeot, he's like the illustrator, again, like an amazing person to follow. So yeah, go give those two a follow. They're
100%. I'll be doing that straight after. I also want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to everyone who's come to join us in the chat. It's been great to see you guys. It's great interacting with you guys. And also, Atlas, thank you ever so much for spending some time with us this evening. Do you want to tell people whereabouts on the interwebs they can find you?
Yes, mainly Threads as well. Threads, TikTok, Instagram, atlas.ursa. Atlas like the Titan, Ursa like the bear.
All right. As for me, you can find me behind most of our social media presence at Too Legit to Crit on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Also, you can find me at natural.juan on Threads. And I just want to thank everyone who spent time out of their busy day listening to Atlas and I with an absolute genius waffling on about tabletop role-playing games. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.